And welcome to another Round the Rotary podcast with me, your host, JP Warren. And with us today, we have someone that's actually in the future. They are recording this. It's 4:13 p.m. Our time on a Tuesday. What time is it there?
We're Wednesday morning, 6:13 a.m.
All right. So if there's any games being played tonight, I'll call you. You place the bet, so we'll make it happen, or actually vice versa. Anyway, everyone on the line right now is Jasper Camacho, who someone I've known since 1998 when I first started as a freshman at Texas A&M. I was in a company called F2 in the Corps of Cadets, and he was a senior. His brother and I became best friends after that. He is the managing director at Marius International, and we're going to get into kind of and if people out there have never heard of it, that's fine. We're gonna get into that in a little bit. But before we begin, I got to say that Round the Rotary podcast is brought to you by Capital Petroleum Consultants. CPC specializes in project engineering, well site supervision, and all disciplines of the oil and gas industry. Contact us through www.capitalpetroleumconsultants.com to see what CPC can do for you today. And again, everyone, this is Jasper Camacho. Thank you so much for taking the time this early in the morning for you. Again, he's the man director at Marius International. Did I pronounce that correct?
That's right, JP.
I did. So you're over in Singapore right now. We connected through, I think Eric, your other brother, mentioned to reach out to you because I actually didn't realize that you were in the energy sector over there. I actually had no idea what you're doing for the past. How long you been international now?
I would say with a couple of stints outside of the abroad, about since 2006.
Okay, so 2000. So we're coming up. What is that? 14, 15 years. Okay.
About
So
yeah.
you're. See. I love this. I mean, your lens and your view of the energy industry and doing business internationally is completely different than I think the primary listeners to this. So I'd love to get some kind of feedback that you may have or insight that you have that may come as everyday knowledge to you that us over here don't know. So why don't you just get us kicked off and talk about your background? Obviously, you went to you grew up in San Antonio, but you kick us off. Go ahead.
Thanks, JP. Well, first of all, I think your podcast is well done, and I've been enjoyed following your conversations and I mean originally from Texas, so I always have a vested interest to see how people in Texas are doing, whether it's oil and gas or not. But it sounds like everyone that you've interviewed have a lot of fortitude. They're I feel like there's a bit of a scare and things like that. But I mean, I think if anything, from being from Texas, I know Texans are highly have a lot of grit in them, and they'll figure it out. No matter what they're doing and whether the market kind of bodes for them. Look, I mean, just quick background. I mean, originally from San Antonio, although I grew up in a military family, so I was born in Korea and moved around a little bit, amongst U.S. base to U.S. base. After graduating high school, there was a part of me.
So how many places did you live before? I guess your family moved to San Antonio.
I would say 4 or 5 places. I mean,
Okay.
but I mean, outside of Korea, it was mostly like Georgia, North Carolina, and El Paso, right?
Okay.
But and yeah, look, I mean, enrolled in A&M, not really knowing what I was doing, but knowing that, I probably would have, kind of served the military of some sort. So the Corps of Cadets made a lot of sense. Majored in economics. Again, there was really no kind of thought behind it. Just, I thought economics in high school was kind of interesting. So I thought it kind of, why not?
That's literally how I live my life. There's no thought and sense behind anything. You just do it. So did you do the military after college?
Well, I did. I was commissioned as a second lieutenant, but at that time there was a program called, I believe it's called the RSVP program, where the Texas Army National Guard had a lack of what they call junior officers, second lieutenant, first lieutenants, and captains. And so there was a scholarship to basically go through ROTC and be commissioned as a second lieutenant in the Texas Army National Guard, and that was what I did. It was interesting because they paid for a lot of college, but which was great. But it also kind of lended towards serving as a National Guard or reservist, and kind of developing my private sector career at the same time.
So your brother my buddy Ben,
Yeah,
he did the Coast Guard.
correct.
I remember that he did the Coast Guard. Then after 9/11, he actually
Yes,
got. I guess the Coast Guard during times of war, they go from Department of Transportation to Department of Defense or something like that. So he had
I think
to
so. Yeah,
he missed his senior year because he had to go to Galveston and
correct,
ride four
correct,
wheelers
correct.
in Galveston. So that's
Right,
what he
right.
did. So you did the reserves for a little bit after college.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
All
well,
right.
I mean, for a long time. So I served 10 years total as a reservist guardsman,
Oh,
and
okay.
finished as the rank as captain, right? But honestly, my military career was pretty lackluster. There wasn't really any real major deployments, or
Right.
fortunately,
Right.
during that time. So
So after that, so you graduated A&M with economics.
yeah,
You were a very tough senior in the Corps Cadets. I remember because so you were a senior in the same outfit that I was. I
correct.
was fighting Foxes Company F2,
Yes.
right? And you were one of the toughest seniors I've had. Where actually you let us actually hang out in your room while the rest of the people were being crapped out in the hallways, which is a great time for me. So you do that,
I
so
wanted
then
to
what?
train my freshmen to understand, kind of being flexible in all situations. So that you could be PT'd out there by your sophomores, but at the same time, you'll be just as versatile to relax in a senior's room, uh, you know, uh, potentially kind of enjoying TV or whatever privileges seniors could have at that time.
I love how you just spun it when you actually just say I was just being cool. So anyway, so then you went to where'd you go get your MBA?
Okay, well, look, I mean, I guess maybe the flow will probably be. I graduated A&M, but while graduation my senior year, I was somewhat recruited by one of my economics professors to intern at this economic consulting firm called LECG.
Okay.
So it's happened, they have offices all over the country, but they actually had an office in College Station. So I mean, so it was easy internship. So took that internship, but then it kind of just followed on to a full-time job. And I was placed in a practice where it was more it was basically advising uh, uh, electricity sector types of reformation and policy development around what back then was very early days, but I think today we kind of take it for granted, is basically a competitive merchant power sector. Previous to the, say 90s, a lot of, including Texas, was all kind of bundled utilities.
Right.
So a company like TXU in Dallas, would basically do your generation, do your high voltage transmission, would do your distribution. Post say 2000, kind of the way the world's going, and especially US, is you unbundle these companies so that now generation is a competitive market. So anyone can who has the capital and obviously apply technically
Yeah.
can compete against each other, right?
Right.
And then you probably get a lot of calls from a lot of what they called energy service providers to kind of power your home. Well, now that market opened up as well, and so now you have two sides of the coin. Where it used to be a monopoly, you can have a competitive market. So, and that's what kind of work I was looking into,
So
kind of
that, so that was I guess that was your first introduction to I guess the energy market.
correct. That's right.
Yeah.
That's
So
right.
what did you think about that? Did you enjoy it? I mean, was it interesting to you? Was it kind of like, well, I mean, what did you want to do? I guess versus like, how'd you get wrapped up into it?
Well, again, I mean, it was more of a, again, not a lot of thought in terms of where to go with it. I mean, I graduated economics degree, and I felt like whatever was presented in front of me was one where I could be in, it'll be interesting enough to learn from it. And
Right.
at the time, you don't really know much, as a graduating undergrad. Um,
I
yeah,
still
so
don't.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, high demand type of sector. This is when more or less Enron imploded back in, I'd
Oh
say,
yeah.
2000, 2001. So, all of a sudden, you have that kind of electricity and markets like that kind of be front and center into the news. So, it was definitely a time where it was a kind of a restructuring and advancements and just a general kind of uh, focus of that sector was up and center, front and center.
What was that like for you? I guess your first job after college. You're in the electricity market and all that stuff, and then the Enron bomb pretty much hits. That kind of I feel like it sent shockwaves. I mean, obviously, I don't know much about it. Shame on me, but I felt like it hit shockwaves all across, I guess, the entire industry. What was, I guess, your perception of that when the Enron
Yeah.
thing blew up?
Well, I'll put it in context. So I said, okay, so I took this job at LECG, worked there until like probably end of 2000, well, the third quarter of 2001. I was actually moved to Boston, right, and was working there for a while, and then was recruited by a client, TXU, which is why you brought that name up, and then moved to Dallas and is working for their energy trading division, a competitor of Enron or a counterparty of Enron at the time.
Okay.
And so I think it was like maybe 3 to 4 months into the job is when kind of the Enron imploded. You see your stock prices kind of precipitously drop very quickly, and then all of a sudden declare bankruptcy. Yeah, look, I mean, obviously it was, again, in the power sector, you don't get a lot of news, right? And then all of a sudden, a kind of, the controversy surrounding Enron,
Right.
the fraud, and I think there's a few books and movies out there, and really in a kind of somewhat boring industry such as electricity. At least back then, we can talk about today. I think it's kind of there's definitely a lot more dynamics now. I obviously just made it a very interesting time. And then, as it were, what happened when Enron imploded? All of a sudden, you have a bunch of very highly talented, experienced professionals just basically, kind of being distributed all over the
Right.
world. And
Right.
so a lot of my colleagues were former Enron colleagues, and my boss was from Enron at the time. Look, I mean, honestly, it's there were some bad actors at Enron, but I mean, the people I've had encountered are just really good people, and just real high caliber, and
But you
and
know
a lot
what?
of them went on to do good things. So
But you know what though? I mean, that's kind of the song of dance, not just our industry, but kind of any
right,
industry. You know what I mean? There's a few bad apples, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it should be brushed under the rug, but
right,
that kind of sets this. It's pretty normal. It's usually when like something bad happens, it leaves kind of a tar. You know what I mean, on the rest of the industry or the rest of the company. When in
yeah,
reality, people are just going to work, trying to do their jobs and collect a paycheck, take care of their families. But they get wrapped
absolutely,
up in this whole Enron and muck, this whole guru, or whether it's Enron, whether it's company X, company Y, because couple people did some shady dealings. It sucks because it's people get branded with that industry, and once the news and once the media takes control of that, they start writing the narrative versus kind of, man, I was just trying to go to work, take care of my family. Shit,
yeah.
I had no
Yeah.
idea what was going on. So anyway,
No,
so
that's
go on.
right. That's right. I mean, back in A&M, Enron was recruiting on campus, and that was one of the more sought off,
Yeah,
jobs, right, to come out.
yeah,
And then now, I mean, I don't know if this is true or not, but I mean, I would suspect that having that on your CV is somewhat, probably again tarnished, right? And I'd say unfairly, right? Because back, Enron was a lot of the pioneer of kind of what we see today in terms of deregulated electricity markets, which I think is
yep,
a good thing. I think competition is good, right?
yep.
It benefits consumers and kind of overall kind of stakeholders
Is,
in the
is there
power
is
industry.
there before? I'm not trying to jump ahead, but is there a lot of
Yeah.
competition where you're at?
Uh, in terms of oil and gas, which I can speak
Yeah.
about, and talk about in more detail. Uh,
Well,
yeah, it depends,
no,
right? I mean,
we get into that, but I mean, you're talking about competition, and you support competition. I was just kind of just thinking right now off the cuff. I mean, where you're at right now, is it a very highly competitive market?
well, okay, we can talk about that. I mean, from an oil and gas perspective, I think, and this kind of leads where I feel like there's opportunities here, is a lot of the markets in Indonesia, Thailand, Bangladesh, Vietnam. They're all controlled more or less from kind of the national state oil companies, right?
Okay,
And so when you talk about competition, no, there isn't a lot of competition for a lot of a big swath of the sector.
right.
And and where there is allowable competition, where kind of more small oil fields, yes, there's a lot. There is a lot of people chasing these fields. Um, so I again, we'll fast forward ahead. I mean, what a lot of what work I do is advisories to putting together structures and deals for consortiums or joint ventures or partnerships to develop energy and infrastructure projects. So
Okay.
we cover power, aviation, which includes rail and airport types of investments, and oil and gas, upstream, midstream, downstream, right? And from the upstream part, what you have in Asia and the markets I work with, it's mostly Southeast Asia and to some extent some parts of South Asia, which includes Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. You have a legacy where kind of the traditional oil companies like Exxon to Shell's had come to Asia, and a lot of why World War II in Japan was involved with was kind of control of oil resources, right?
Well,
And
isn't that one of the main reasons why Pearl Harbor occurred, because the supply of oil was cut?
trying to cut supply oil, and then like I don't want to get too geopolitical because I have a lot of Japanese friends, but kind of trying to control kind of the oil resources that was developed by BP or predecessor BP and the predecessors of Exxon and Shell.
Okay.
A lot of the oil, Indonesia basically had a lot of already developed fields of oil, right?
Okay, I know that.
Back then, what's now Myanmar, but Burma, also had quite a lot of developed fields, in Bangladesh. And
Okay.
so that's where you see it's not any mystery of why a lot of the conflict was kind of in these countries during World War II, is because that's where it had resources. So there was a lot of oil kind of back then. These companies were kind of pushed out, and then I guess if you look at history, a lot of the governments formed and the national oil companies kind of took over these. And I think kind of where we see a lot of patterns is that wherever there's a national oil company, from their kind of incumbent markets, developing fields, we think that they always go for the low-hanging fruit, right? And in terms of the well
Yeah.
development and production, and
Yeah.
and so when you look at these fields, they that are abandoned or kind of capped up, you go back in there, there's still a lot of resources underneath it. So the business model that we've developed is helping advance some investments into proposing to the state or proposing to whoever has the rights over these fields. Can we come in and come in as partners, like at-risk partners? We bring in the funding, we bring in the technology partners, go in there using modern management and process and obviously technology, re-enter the well, see what else
Yep.
is out there, squeeze as much as we can possibly do, and sell it, and then kind of do a kind of a profit sharing arrangement where the original or the owner of the well doesn't put any money, doesn't put any risks. For them, it was just a dried up piece of land, but now it's yielding some cash flow for them. And so that model is what we've been proposing. There's a tender in Bangladesh with the state-owned oil company called Baypex that we're actually the bid deadline's Monday, so we're preparing for that deadline and proposing there. We're doing this in Indonesia, Thailand, Myanmar, looking to try to do in Vietnam.
I'm gonna have to slow you down. I think I skipped the bullet by asking that question about competition, because I mean I'm so fascinated about how you went from graduating A&M in economics, going to Boston, coming back to Dallas, and now you are in electricity, but now you are in Asia, working these
Yeah.
it seems like they're complex deals with national oil companies, working with this investors and all that stuff. So can you walk me from you going from the electricity grid to actually being over in the Far East for the last 16 years, if you don't mind? I mean, because
Yeah, well, you present me with a topic, I'll jump on
I know.
it,
Look,
and
that's I
like
told
a
you. Look,
hungry dog and a bone, basically.
look, even though I'm doing a podcast, doesn't mean I'm good at asking questions. Okay, I'm good at bullshit, and that's about it.
No
So
worries.
how did you go from living in? Walk me through this, going to Dallas to actually transferring, I guess, moving your entire life and starting there and growing what you're doing right now.
Yeah, look, I mean, okay, so I'm in Dallas working with TXU, and a lot of my work is, developing, software as a quantitative analyst, to help traders, kind of value a lot of their positions and basically pricing of the
Okay.
commodity asset. And so, I was really kind of trying to figure out, what to do, with my life there. I was like, do I continue this route? During that time, a lot of fields in terms of computational finance or quantitative finance was evolving. This is the kind of the predecessor of the quant that we see today, the quant trader. And so I was researching programs because I had some software development expertise and understand economics and trying to put those together. But then kind of looking at that, it was kind of bleak in terms of sitting behind a screen and um, developing code around these algorithms. I just didn't really see, kind of didn't really suit me.
That sounds
The
so
alternative,
sexy. Developing codes around
yeah, but I mean,
algorithms.
if you look,
That just
if you look
that
at,
gets that's what I do Saturday nights. Like that's hot.
it's hot now, right? I mean, obviously there's a lot of interest in tech and things like that. But I mean, for me, I want to deal with people. I always had an inclination for going overseas, just because I've never really worked overseas.
Okay.
Enjoyed, my time. We have family in Korea, so visiting them.
Okay.
Got to do a kind of a Europe program at A&M. I was very lucky to do.
Where'd you
Uh,
where what was that program? Where'd you go?
Yeah, so it was a very small program. I don't know if you remember in at A&M, there's this the MSc Forsyth Art Galleries, right? It's a
Yes.
gallery in the MSc Memorial Student Center,
Yeah, you walk in
and
there. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So I was in a battalion. Maybe I saw an advertisement of them looking for kind of 2 student volunteers uh, to basically come on a trip and help a lot of donors of the art gallery kind of just visit Europe and look at glass art, right? So I applied, like everything else, there was no thought behind it. Just saying I'm interested, right? And
Yeah.
I was lucky to be selected. And it was interesting because I actually got paid a stipend. I think it was like $500 for over 6 weeks, and I got to stay at, I would say probably more like 4-star hotels,
Yeah.
and basically, carry luggage for the donors from all the way from Perth, Scotland, going down, through, UK over to France to Czech Republic, down to Austria and down to Italy, on a bus with these guys, and basically room, board, everything was paid for. Right, it was kind of a very cheap and profitable way to kind of get to see Europe, enjoy Europe. So again, it's these little niche that I like to find and try grab these things. I think you'll see that there's a pattern in all these things. So
So that was kind of your first experience with internet, like international commerce, or what do you want to call it?
I was as a student carrying back luggage around, I would say. But
Well, I
I mean,
mean,
it was.
I was a TA on a marketing trip, I think in 2001. Yeah,
Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, this is international marketing. Mind you, it was probably a pub crawl for 8 different countries for about
Yes.
20 to 21 days. But yeah, it was like, oh yeah, I like the international. I want to do something like that's kind of what drove me to get my master's in France. It was the international, how business is conducted over in different countries, which drew me over there. So
Yeah.
so it was kind of your first experience too.
I would say as an adult or pseudo adult, yes, it was definitely,
All right.
definitely, definitely.
Okay.
So where did I go? Okay, yeah. So now the decision is, kind of. I knew I wanted to work abroad. I think energy is as good a field as any other, right? I mean, I was not going to go into tech or pharmaceuticals or anything like that because I don't have any background.
Well,
And
what,
it's like, okay,
well, why energy?
well, no, I had the background in it, right? So it was, I think energy just came to be a more of a. It came to me versus I went to it, and so
Okay. Okay.
graduating A&M, honestly, you can throw a rock and hit an energy type of job, and it'll be kind of pretty robust pickings for
Okay.
anyone. Yeah, so look, I mean, it was a decision whether to do I become a technical person in the field of quant finance, or do I just want to go get my MBA? And I thought MBA was more suitable of doing types of work abroad, and kind of more
Right.
people centric versus computer centric. So I applied to a variety of programs, and I thought I applied to Harvard Business School, kind of as a, I would regret not applying, and obviously applied to a few other schools that I felt like,
Yeah, that
uh,
was the, you know what, if I get it, I get it. If not,
yeah,
whatever. I got other stuff. Yeah.
at least I tried. At least I tried.
Yeah.
Well, look,
At least I tried.
yeah. Well, look, I mean, that kind of did that, and then maybe 6 months later, I get a email saying alumni from HBS wanted to interview me, and had that interview in Dallas, and it was supposed to be for like an hour lunch, and it turned out to be like a 2.5 hour conversation. And this particular person really sold me on the program, and the kind of the brand of HBS and experience of HBS. And I'm like, okay, I agree with you. You sold me on HBS. More than happy to join. But so it was very welcoming, very kind of good conversation. And then 2 months later, I get an email, and it looks like I got admitted. And so kind of somewhat of a shock, but was lucky enough to get it. And yeah, I ended up going to do my MBA there.
Okay.
Basically in Boston again. So as you know, I after A&M I went to Boston. Uh, Came back to
Back to Dallas.
Texas, and then back to Boston, which
Okay.
in a conversation we'll have, you'll see I went to Boston again. And Yeah, phenomenal program. Great faculty. Open up the world in terms of obviously everything business related, as one would expect. But I mean, just
Kind
the
of feel
way.
like, I kind of feel like we can have a completely new podcast on the experience of the Harvard MBA experience
Yes.
from a Texas boy, which would be a great story in itself. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
I think it would be.
Yeah. Indeed. And I don't want to go dwell on it too much. But I think for our conversation and kind of where I see it going, I think the relevant takeaway there is in between your first and second year, you do an internship, right?
Okay.
And it's up to you kind of manage and get hired for your own internship. And so I had a couple offers to work in investment bank in New York, Hong Kong. Kind of decided to take a more, I guess, path less traveled, and ended up in Mumbai, India, working for a company called Tata, and they have it's an Indian conglomerate, and one of their divisions or companies they have is a company called Tata Power. So it was a way that I could take my electricity energy experience, and kind of quickly go into a different country and apply these kind of skills.
That's interesting to me because I mean, for someone going, A&M, then do this, get the Harvard MBA, and you have these experiences, go to Hong Kong, you have the experience, go to New York, why? Like, what was it with you, or what was the decision process with you that made you choose a different path to go to India to Tata? I mean, what was it? Do this kind of like, I'm not going to do this. I'm gonna do like what kind of made you shift your, I guess, your focus and direction on I guess the cush jobs, the plush locations, if you will.
I don't know. I don't have an answer really that makes a lot of sense, other than sometimes I have a gut reaction against following the flow, right?
Okay,
So
well,
if
tell
I
me about that.
see if I
What do
see a
you mean?
lot of,
Tell me about that.
I don't know. I mean, if I see a lot of people going to a fancy restaurant or popular restaurant, and I see another restaurant around the corner that could look interesting, but there isn't really many people there, I find it highly satisfying to go in there and find out, well, this is really good food, and the
Okay.
chef and the waiting staff is phenomenally to speak to, right? And I just for some reason I'm allergic to following the crowd somehow sometimes.
Have you always been that way?
I suppose, I don't know, right? I don't know where it
Okay.
comes
Okay.
from, but it's just
Okay.
uh which I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just because I had the experience with Corps Cadets, and some experience in the U.S. Army, where it's highly homogenized, and and somewhat bureaucratic, and I just kind of felt like
Hey
that
man,
experience is not
hey
so terrific.
Jasper. Right now, you don't know about the flood right now. All right, you talking to me right now? I'm sitting in Houston. A Soda Stream,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
Uh,
Sorry.
so no, sorry. No, I mean
Is
you're
that a
talking to
plug?
me.
Do you get advert revenue for SodaStream now? Like,
No, that's a minor plug. Yeah, SodaStream is a minor sponsor for Around the Rotary. The best Soda Streams out there. No, but I mean, I get it. I mean, I don't know. You're right. I mean, it might be. I mean, I'm the kind of the same way, and I don't know why. I mean, when it comes, I mean, you notice a lot of people out of the core, they start growing their hair long. I just did
yeah,
this over the past 2 years, but they start growing their hair long, they start getting tattoos, start doing kind of stuff that's kind of against the norm. Whether it's taking jobs, taking trying restaurants. I mean, I think that's interesting though. It's just because something feels comfortable and just because everyone is doing this path in this direction, that doesn't mean it's just for you, just because it's comfortable.
right.
So I like the fact that you just said you just go with your gut. Like, hey, like, yeah, I could do this easily, or I can kind of go with my gut and do this kind of thing that I really don't know have much detail about or research or soundboards to bounce things off of. I think that's a cool aspect of a character or drive or motivation, whatever you want to call it.
I think what you just said was I could always go back to do this easily was somewhat part of it, right? Because I feel like an opportunity to work in the electricity industry in India doesn't come to everyone,
No,
on a daily basis. I mean, well, okay, it is if you're Indian and you want to go there, but I just felt like I would get more experience and more enrichment by kind of going to and getting out of my comfort zone, right? India is not an easy country by any stretch of the
I was going to
imagination.
say, how was it working in India? How long were you there for?
Yeah, so I think all told, maybe let's call it 3 months and change. So
Okay,
it's like a summer internship.
okay,
And well, okay, it was a little bit interesting because I get there and I find out the MD of the Tata Power company, who actually sponsored my internship, saying, I want to bring this person in. And he originally was, as I understood it, very interested that I had an energy trading kind of background and experience.
okay,
And I think he saw that, okay, well, there could be some opportunities in India to kind of bring that into to their portfolio or their capability. Well,
okay.
I mean, the day I get there, I find out he got sacked, and so they brought in, obviously, someone that replaced him, and kind of a long time Tata Power guy. I mean, I don't know if you know about Tatas, but I mean, if they are a very big company in India and they do a lot of crazy things, interesting
No,
things. Yeah.
no, I don't know about. Yeah, okay,
So, for example, they own Jaguar. They have a Tata Motor company, and they went and acquired Jaguar. I mean, they're probably in things that one doesn't not aware, right? And
well, let me ask you a question. You took this internship based on someone that knew you, that knew your energy. Oh yeah, he does energy trading, got this, and all that stuff. Suddenly you go over there, you move, I don't know, 5,000 miles away, 6,000, however long it is, literally
yeah,
the other side of this world. Okay,
right,
you
right.
move over there. The guy that was kind of not to be your mentor, but the guy that was supposed to, I guess, not be your ambassador, but I don't know what you want to call it. That knew
Sponsor,
you,
call them a
your
sponsor.
sponsor,
Yeah,
sure,
yeah,
sponsor. He's gone.
yeah.
A new person's in. How, I mean, I guess, what were you thinking? What was your reaction? Was it okay, well, this is too much, I'm out? Or was it like, I'm gonna just jump in, I'm gonna find out like what I got to do, I'm gonna get it done? I mean, what was your mindset, I guess, going to a new, different country, and I guess jumping into the situation where you thought you had this sponsor, mentor, whatever you want to call it, and they're gone?
Well, look, I mean, for me, it wasn't like I grew up in saying I want to work for Tata all my life, and this is my once an opportunity to work there, and
Right.
and it wasn't that I want to set up an energy trading, and it's internship, so it was very temporary. So, for my perspective was just make the best out of it. We
Okay.
had a meeting and a conversation with the owner and chairman of Tata Group, a man named Ratan Tata. And from the power sector, he was very interested in seeing where he can bring his uh, markets abroad. In India, although so this is a multi-billion-dollar company in Tata, hundreds over 100 and something years of real kind of longevity and
Okay.
life in the company, have done a lot of things in the whatever company and sector that they're in, but if you look at Tata Power, it was quite small compared to the other companies, and a lot of it is just because, as we said, competition. The Indian government really doesn't allow, like we see in U.S., a lot of private players, at least back then, uh, participate in the power sector there. So they were
Okay.
frustrated. They can't make any growth happen in India. They have a lot of wonderful engineers. They have a lot of capital to deploy, and so it's like, okay, what do we do? So my job was to help, find a strategy to go abroad, take them out of India, right? And so, looking at markets that, obviously proximity is a big, kind of function in this decision. Where can their capital, be very efficient in terms of deploying it, in terms of competitiveness of the cost of capital. Where would their engineers be, kind of welcomed, and they can actually do a good job. So that was my job for that. My project was that summer.
Well, so that's a very interesting job, and I guess going from someone from from whatever to going over there, that sounds very interesting, but also very challenging because you're in this situation, India. There's surrounding countries. I'm not sure if you've been to or not, but let's skip that. Let's
Sure.
pretend you haven't. Usually when people are like, all right, well, I'm gonna over here. Oh, there's this market here that loves this market. I mean, it seems like it's there's so many different variables to bring in the fact, and the fact that if I, international business is very different than U.S. business. You know what I mean?
Correct.
There's different
Correct.
cultural norms. I mean, do you discuss business first? Do you build that 5 months of relationship and then discuss business? It's very different each country you go to, and obviously you're different dealing with very different cultures, business norms, and all that stuff. So, how are you able to, I guess, identify potential opportunities in one country versus another country versus another country, being this internship cat that can't went over there for 3 months? I mean, that sounds kind of mind boggling to me, if you don't mind.
Well, look, I mean, let's take it for a grain of salt. It is an internship, and it is a kind of a study, into a problem or a objective that they have. Look, I mean, a lot of it's just common sense, right? I mean, you would look at markets where there's a lot of need or demand for new power generation. You would look at, kind of culturally, what countries get along with, an Indian company. So, for example, Pakistan is not probably a market that one would go to because,
Right,
they're kind of obviously, have a very conflictual relationship, right?
right.
But the evolution of this particular internship was that you look at places like East Africa, proximity is not that far away. High growth in population, and the power generation is just not keeping up with it. And so you look at that as like, okay, well, and then there's also kind of a good India diaspora in these markets. And so you see culturally that there is a fit, and they do need. There's not a lot of power companies in the world chasing after these markets. So
Okay.
you see that, okay, there's a pattern here that one could kind of have a strategy around and develop a plan around. And so in the end, that's kind of the conclusion that we made, was like, okay, well, this is the markets that one would go after. Kind of East Africa, Southeast Asia, only because there are some India generation and Indian power is really driven by coal, and so Indonesia coal is kind of like where a lot of that supply is coming from. So just having some position and some kind of understanding in the markets of Indonesia, capture this kind of east-west flanks of the Indian kind of as its core, is kind of where kind of naturally evolved. And so I guess the satisfying thing aspect of it is, we gave the presentation to Tata Power Management, the chairman Ratan Tata, and you look at the year or two later after that, you see the news that, okay, Tata Power opens an office in Indonesia. Tata Power makes an acquisition in East Africa, right, in power sector. And I'm not saying I'm the one who did it, but I helped them kind of get to that kind of
I'm not saying you did it, but at the same time, it's you were at the table too.
at the
So
table and
look,
helping advance that conversation.
look, I want I feel like I can talk to you for about 4 to 6 hours about your international experience
Right.
and all that stuff. I want you to get us caught up on kind of because it's such a hot topic. I mean, it's not even a hot topic, but it's such an important topic. I mean, can you bring us up to speed, kind of what you're doing today,
Yeah.
and how you are? Give us. I love having you on the show because what y'all do is you provide efficient, low cost energy to people that need it, to communities and people that need it. Okay, and here in the states, I mean, there's been a lot of like fossil fuels versus renewable. It's a versus, which is not a versus, but you're actually kind of in on the ground. You know what I mean? I feel like, and I may be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. I feel like your boots on the ground, where you actually, hey, look, I see what we're doing for these communities. You know what I mean? This
Sure.
isn't like a pie in the sky advertisement bullshit advertisement campaign like, oh, we built 4 schools. Like, you're actually boots on the ground, and I would love for you to kind of catch me up, but also the listeners out there on kind of what you are doing currently,
Yeah.
and what you're seeing, and just the environment about it. And I'll probably ask you questions throughout, but I love to hear about it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, just fast forward. I mean, I actually post MBA, end up working for a power company that was doing a lot of growth outside of US, and so that kind of naturally drew me into that. After I graduated, 6 days later, I was hired to go to the Singapore office. So my first time ever in Singapore. Just kind of packed a suitcase and
What year
you know,
was this?
this is 2006. So this would have been
Okay.
yeah,
Okay.
and then yeah, so was working in business development, investments, M&A, looking at power opportunities in Asia.
And you
Uh,
liked working with people at this time. I mean, you got now you're actually working with people and you're applying your technical skills too, right?
you're working with people, and I think, as you say, the compelling part of it is you're dealing with a need, right? And Asia is a high growth region in terms of energy consumption. You can throw a megawatt hour or a BTU at the market, and it will suck it up, right?
Okay.
And so that's what was very enjoyable. Anyway, so I don't want to kind of just focus on my career. I mean, I think the question you're asking is a good one. Uh,
Thank
so
you.
worked for a couple of kind of corporate development roles in until 2019. Then 2019 is kind of where I was like, okay, well, I have a very good network in Asia. I have some track record in doing deals of kind of some note. And so I decided to start a company called Marius International. Marius is my son's name. Just a tip, when you have your first kid, child, don't name your company after that person just because you don't know what the second child is coming, and now you have to figure out what to do with that name.
Well,
But
then the kids are gonna start talking. It's like, hey, who do you think dad loves more? It's
yeah,
like, well, dad,
exactly. Or do I own a
did he name a
company,
company
or
after you? Did
exactly.
he name a company after you? I don't think so. So yeah, I
Yeah,
get it. Favorites,
exactly.
favorites.
Exactly. But then it's too costly to change the name, so let's you know.
It's too much. Yeah, I know. So you tell me about this. So you say you're making deals and all that stuff. You're bringing in people from different sectors, governments. I mean, can you go into that a little bit, but and then segue into the Marius, because that stuff is fascinating to me. How you're bringing in players. It's not just the oil field service providers and the E&P companies. You're
Yeah.
bringing in governments, communities, all that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well, look, I mean, let me talk about the kind of the whale reentry program that we're doing in a lot of countries, right?
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so as we spoke earlier in the conversation, there's a lot of whales that are kind of laying there that's idle, but our team feels like that there's some resources underneath that just hasn't been exploited. And so we go in there, and as I mentioned to you, a lot of these wells are controlled by the government, right? So let's take the case in Bangladesh. So Baypex is the Bangladesh upstream oil and gas company that is responsible for development of fields. Back in the day, Chevron had a very large presence, but then they kind of slowly exited just because they wanted to focus on the bigger oil fields in the world. And so I found actually an Aggie class of '99 from Taylor, Texas, right? That's the one by
Tyler.
Austin. No,
Tyler.
Taylor.
Taylor.
The one by Austin is Taylor,
And
right?
you were 99,
I'm
right?
99. I'm 99. So
Okay.
found this petroleum engineer from A&M. class of '99, kind of in Thailand, former Chevron, I guess, just roaming, the earth looking for oil wells to look at, and things like that. So I mean, look, I mean, while we're both class of '99, A&M, I think that's kind of where the commonalities kind of end. I mean, this guy is, he's my partner in this
Yeah.
sector, and but he's a bit of a petroleum nerd, right? So I mean, all he cares about the data and the seismology, which is great because I don't have any capabilities in that front,
Hey,
right?
Jasper, I'm not saying anything about petroleum engineer data nerds either. Okay, those are all my customers. So I love them all. If you're listening, anyway,
Yeah,
go
it
on.
is. Yeah, and look, I so we formed a team, and brought in some other people, and basically saying, okay, this is the model that we're going to look at in the region, and basically it's basically I guess oil field reentry type of business.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so look, I mean, okay, well, how do you do these things, right? So I mean, in these markets, you got to have a local partner, right? So
Yeah.
find a local company or entrepreneur that's
What do
obviously
you what do you mean a local partner? Is that like kind of like an agent in the country that has connections? Because I remember being in Saudi. I mean, you
yeah,
need someone that has connections with certain people that can make business progress versus stall and stagnate.
yeah.
Is
Well, I
that kind
think
of
I think a local partner has many definitions, right? An agent is like one side of the spectrum.
yeah.
Look, the reason why I don't like agents so much is just because they're very temporary in nature. They're not going to see, they want to make a buck off of you or
Yeah.
the deal, and you really don't have any control over kind of how they're making their work happen. Obviously corruption is a big deal in a lot of these markets. So as an American, and you don't want to get involved with that at all. So
So I guess I was asking. I mean, that's my point. I mean, you say it's a partner in a foreign. I mean, so what do you mean, kind of like a partner? Someone that's been there for a while, someone that knows. I mean, how to recomplete wells with the personnel and the talent and the skill sets that are there. What?
yeah, okay. They make. I mean, there's no one cookie cutter kind of size model, but I mean, you typically find someone who gets the business model, who wants to earn their keep, right? So they're in a sense equity partners, right?
Yep.
It may not be for cash, it may be just from in kind in terms of doing the sweat work, sweat equity. Obviously able to liaise from a cultural or language perspective, the stakeholders, which in this case, you have the counterparty, which is the oil, state oil company. And then once you go in there, there's going to be many ministries, and the government controls basically all this parts of the decision making. But then also kind of help mobilize the local operators, like the wireline company. How do we find someone like that? Do we need to bring our own in, or contract it out, or procure things? These are all things that
Okay.
we need help kind of looking at, because it's not like Texas where there's just it's very organized, very lot of companies out there, and it's most like, okay, well, who do you have a good experience with? We don't have that choice a lot of times. We have to kind of
Well, it's
create.
not honestly not even in Texas. Like, it's not even a question of who you have a good experience with. It's like, okay, there's this directional company messed up. We have 500 more. So who's the next in line? You know
Yeah,
what I
we
mean?
don't have
Like,
that. We don't have
there's
that.
an option here. There's the competition, as you were saying earlier, is here.
Yeah. Yeah, so a lot of what we need to do is vertically integrate, just because we have no other choice. If we want to
Okay.
do this job and make a profit out of it, you have to
Right.
create your own ecosystem, right? So that's so finding your right operational partners, finding the right country partner is pretty key. Bringing a technical team, and in this case, it's kind of easier, because we had like the former Chevron guys, and a lot of their kind of people that there's a lot of really good 30 years experience oil guys that came to Asia under their corporate program and just kind of got lost here,
Just
and
stay.
they just
Just
stayed.
stay.
So you can pick a few of these guys, and they're all really good.
Yeah.
It's just, and
Yeah.
they just don't want to go back to US. They rather be in Thailand, for example, and live their lives out. So
Hey, baby, I get that, man. I get that. All right.
so I mean, look, I mean, that's a lot of it's and then also then finally capital, right? So the capital, you're not going to find people who says, okay, my investment thesis is to go into oil reentry projects in Bangladesh, right? Because that's what my investment investors want. You really got to create a project that kind of can stand the test of time. Could be as good as quality, or if not better than say a project in U.S. Right? Just because.
What do you mean stand the test of time? What do you mean by that?
Well, look, I mean, obviously you have to do your due diligence technically, right? So, it can't be a exploration type of
Okay.
program, right? I mean, we're not. There's no one wants to gamble on this in these kind of types of markets, right?
So that's what I'm asking you. It seems like, and I may be completely wrong on all this stuff, but it seems like in the U.S. there's a very a growth mindset, and
Yeah.
growth is just growth. You know what I
Yes.
mean? It's not operating a profit. Well, at least it's how it was pre-COVID or pre-2019. It was growth, growth, growth. Buy acreage, get production up, get production up, get production up, blah
Yep.
blah 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 blah, versus operating a profit mindset. So that's kind of, I feel like that's kind of what you're kind of leading to. It's like, okay, like it's not like grow, grow, grow. It's a different mindset in your markets that you're dealing with versus it is in West Texas, Bakken, PA, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Is that a safe assumption to say?
That's right. I think the difference is, in the U.S., the environment for business, the laws, the legal nature around the business is so good and so efficient that you don't have to worry about any of that, right? You just need to worry about, okay, do I think that there's a resource there? Can I make a play? And maybe that's gotten a bit too hot in the U.S. I don't know the answer to that. In this side of the world, right? The legal construct isn't perfect, right? You're dealing with the government, right? So you never know that one day they like you, the other day it says, okay, I want to renegotiate, or I want you out. Do you sue them? You can try, but you're not going to. So
You telling someone that doesn't trust the government already. So yeah, I get it. I get it.
Exactly. So, you have so many kind of factors that I think if you live in U.S. or Europe, it's working there, it's a luxury. Whereas in these markets, it's not there. And so, if you get someone to want to put money into these projects, all this stuff needs to be adequately addressed, if not even better, more.
Right.
And so that when they go in there, look, the project itself will make a lot of money, but the risk is still there, right? Let's say you're making a lot of money and you negotiate something like a oil sharing contract with your counterparty, which happens to the government. Oh, well, they'll say, thank you very much for making a lot of money for me, and into that investment, I'll gladly take the well over and kind of
Yeah.
carry on. I'll take
Yeah.
you to the airport and see your way out and stamp
Yeah.
your passport. So
Exactly.
that's the kind of risk that we're facing here. And some investors love it, right? They say, okay, I get it. I don't price the discount on the risk, the premium on the risk as much as maybe others. But a lot of people, it's like all or none, right? And if you introduce these elements of contractual risk or sovereign risk, as we call it, they just don't want to touch it. Whereas I find it very I think there's a mismatch, right? Because this is where the growth is, right? This is where the demand in energy consumption is,
Is
right?
is East Asia.
Is in Southeast Asia, South Asia.
Southeast Asia.
I
Okay.
mean, you look at, okay, where are we? China, couple billion people. India, coming up over, trying to catch up a couple billion people.
Yep.
Southeast
Go on.
Asia, if you look at the population overall, it's about 500 million. So we have most of the population here. Most of it's not, outside of China, India, doesn't have a real big manufacturing base, doesn't have, their economies are growing, right? Still very, fast.
So this is kind of a good segue, and I may be kind of too stupid to bring this up in a fashionable manner, but that's a very good point you have. You're bringing up this population, right, that needs energy, right,
Yep,
that needs energy that's affordable because India,
absolutely.
Southeast. So can you talk to me or can you guide me on any thoughts that maybe you're sitting around the water cooler and you having all this stuff? Because there,
Or
I'm not even,
our soda stream machine.
or,
It's brought to you
or
by
soda
soda
stream
stream.
too. So there's this huge population right now that needs affordable
Yep.
energy. Okay. What is the man, I kind of have so many questions about this one niche point we're talking about. Number one, what is so all these emerging populations, are people beating on their chest for like, oh, we just want wind turbines and solar? Are is
Yeah.
it welcoming? Are communities and industries and companies welcoming the fossil fuel side of energy?
It's complicated, right? I mean, and these are so many countries, and they all have their own kind of
Right, right.
individual characteristic of what they believe the right recipe is going forward on the energy future. Um, Look, I think renewables is very much in vogue. So if you set up a solar farm in Bangladesh, just because trying to keep the same market here, and the contract is decent, you're going to find investors, right?
Yeah.
It's just it's cosmopolitan. A lot of people are putting this type of capital in asset class globally, right? If you find, doing something what we're doing, it's because it's improving gas production in a country that already is wanting gas versus bringing a coal project. I mean, we're going to get investment just because, they feel like, gas as a hydrocarbon resource isn't, is actually conducive on their energy requirements and potentially transition, if you were to call it that. Um, Look, I mean, in the end, to get cheap power, coal still rules the day in terms of, the need, right? For example, in Thailand, one of the state utility there is tendering, for a construction of a 600 megawatt lignite coal power plant, right? Lignite is probably, probably your dirtiest of all coal, right? It's basically
Right.
taking dirt and trying to burn it. Um, so why did they do? Oh, they've already made a decision, right? The budget's there. They were hiring a EPC contractor to build it, right? Why did they
Yeah.
do it? Well, it's the cheapest form of power for them, right? And they don't have the luxury of this. A lot of these countries, they don't have deserts like Texas does, right? They don't have a lot of wind resource or solar resource, the cost of generation is still quite expensive. There's some small projects in places like Thailand. Vietnam is very quite aggressive in terms of what they call the feed-in tariff program. So basically, if you build a solar renewable project, the government will take it at some pre-approved price. No contract needed. You build it, they will take it. Kind of
Okay.
constitution. So you see that kind of developing. Look, it's still a very conventional energy market here, right? I mean, I think if anything, LNG is where a lot of countries are looking to,
Yeah.
improve their energy position. Kind of, if they were trying to transition away from coal. Uh, but yeah, look, I mean, coal is a dying sector, right? I mean, and the main issue is you should not.
Look,
Financing is going to be difficult.
it's a dying sector, and I completely agree with you. But at the same time, I mean, and I hate being this way because it's like if you agree with this, it's a whole polarized thing. If you agree with it, you're an asshole. But at the same time, you got to be realistic a little bit. It's like, yeah, coal's a dying sector, and it's blah 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 blah. But at the same time, these people can't afford to heat or cool their homes or refrigerate their milk or anything like that without a economically source of energy,
Exactly,
right?
exactly.
And unfortunately, I'd love it if we were all rolling on hoverboards, like powered off of sun, and eventually, hopefully, we get there one day. But
Right.
currently, in this environment, in this world global economy, we're not there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think there needs to be less throwback or less punches thrown towards, whether it's U.S., shale industry or whether it's international industry when you're just trying to supply energy for these communities.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so how do you, I mean, I guess, how do you deal with that? Those comments or is that a hot topic there?
Not as much, not as much, right? I
Okay.
mean, I think a lot of people, and look, I worked for a couple of power companies doing investments, and the equation back then is you provide cheap, competitive, low cost energy because that's the only thing that people would buy, in these
Yeah.
markets, and so I worked on a few coal deals, and that's kind of you see the benefits and how cheap it is. Obviously, that's the way the world's going. That's kind of a problematic stance to have these days. But look, I mean, in the end, the people who make the decisions and who supply their energy, to their customers or their citizens, they understand the equation, right? That
Yeah.
okay, they would love to have kind of the 100% solar, 100%
Oh
wind
yeah.
as an energy stream. But the problem is at nighttime there's no sun, right? And there's
Sure.
not a very economic or efficient source of storage. So having kind of bringing in base load, what we call in industry, either coal or gas, combined cycle gas turbine CCGT power plants. It's where things going. I see actually less. There's not a lot of pushback on oil and gas, right? It's just like we have this resource as a country. We don't have a
Right.
lot of money. We need to exploit it, right? That's dollars underneath the ground that is tax revenue. It's kind of gets it's a resource that they can bring to the market. Their equation is that okay, 40 50 years from now it's probably not going to be worth as much or kind of high demand, so they're going to try to want to exploit it now because there is a market for that
Yeah.
at this point in time,
It's gonna
right? So
shift.
it's going to shift, but at the same time they know it's very highly required and needed. So there's no real kind of it's not like Europe or in the U.S. where it's kind of a sector that's going to die today, right? In terms of hydrocarbon
Well,
development.
yeah, it just looks like a negative rhetoric we get from the news and the media and all this stuff. But look, I know you got a busy day ahead, and I got a busy night, actually a non-busy night, getting home watching Netflix. But I want to kind of ask you something. So, to our listeners out there, primarily, there's a majority of them, obviously, in the United States, and I don't know whether they're private equity, whether they're operators, whether this and that. I kind of want, I mean, if you don't mind, I mean, I kind of want, I mean, you brought up, government challenges, this challenge, this challenge. I kind of want you to kind of discuss, I guess, the opportunity
Yep.
that's that where you're at, because I think, well, first off, what you're doing right now, I mean, I remember talking to your brother Eric, and where's he at now? Thailand?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, he's in Thailand now. And I was talking to Eric and Ben, and they were mentioning what you do, and I was like blown away. I mean, you're doing stuff that you're bringing, I guess, affordable, efficient energy to communities. You're bringing in governments. You're bringing in this. You're bringing in that. I think it's so awesome what you're doing. It's so cool what you're doing for the communities and the local communities you're part of. That being said, if people are listening, I had somebody on here from a Redbone Resources. It's a startup company, and they're trying to get out there and trying to see what other opportunities are out there. What opportunities are out there for, I guess, uh, whether it's U.S., European, whatever like that, to maybe reach out to you and engage in a conversation just to find out if it's even worth their time or even if it's worth pursuing. I mean, is there anything that you can kind of talk about?
Yeah. Look, I mean, there's a couple of things on that matter. One area, and so okay, we have a client in Indonesia that is an traditionally upstream developer company, and they're looking at renewables as a place where okay, it's coming, and so they're like, okay, well, I have a lot of kind of geologists and petroleum engineers that are very good at kind of understanding subsurface risk. But at the same time, they want to kind of get into the renewable energy space. And Indonesia is high demand country as well. Coal is where it's all the supply of production of energy is from. So they say, okay, well, what makes sense? Geothermal, right? So geothermal, you have to deal with subsurface geological attributes. So I was looking at their progress, and when you look at their project, they were beating a upstream hammer at a power project, right? So no doubt you need that kind of expertise from the subsurface side. But what they didn't understand is like, okay, well, the power side, it can be just as complicated and complex from a technical, from a financial kind of perspective. So now we're going through their whole project, restructuring it, kind of replanning and remapping it so that okay, now it looks like a very more competitive project and more financially viable project. So like for your customers or your listeners, I mean, I would say, look, through myself or one of my many partners, we have a lot of people that are very well versed in power project development. And geothermal is, I think, a place where you'll find some wonderful natural kind of crossovers from your listeners and their companies, right? You're still in the end digging holes in the ground. A lot of technology that we're looking for oil reentry, actually, we can bring over to geothermal type of thing, because it's kind of perforation tools,
Okay.
capabilities. We use a product called Gas Gun or Kraken in the U.S. So basically we're bringing this out to Asia. This is traditionally developed around the oil and gas sector. So have you guys think about that, right? And we can help.
So if I'm sitting there and I'm at a whether it's a completions company or whatever like that, and I got this new technology out there, and it's might be worthwhile. And look, I'm not plugging you because I love you. I'm just plugging you because it's what you're doing right now. Like, I'm unfamiliar with it, but maybe people might be understand it more. It might be beneficial to talk to you to see if there is a market for that, to see if there is a use for that, to kind of the projects that you're kind of dealing with.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. Yeah. So we're happy to utilize your tools or whatever solutions that someone brings in, if it makes sense, right? And so
Yeah.
happy to look at that. On the, look, I mean, if oil field reentry piques anyone's interest, right, and kind of running around South Asia, Southeast Asia, well, okay, the market's there, and always looking for collaboration opportunities. If someone really wants to invest in these projects, happy to have a conversation. To see if this is something that's right for someone. It's a funky market, right? So what we have is we have partnerships all over the country.
Funky market. You're talking about U.S. shale right now. That's a disastrous market. So why don't you tell me about your funky market?
Well, I explained a lot of it. It's just kind of a lot of country, kind of level risk, a lot of kind of government management, stakeholder management. But in the end, if you do it well, you find the right partners, you have people who are experienced, it can be a well worthwhile, project. There's money to be made in these markets, right? It's just, it takes a little patience. It's not as fast as, the U.S. market.
Yeah, but I kind of feel that outlook literally can be applied to kind of anywhere, any market, whether it's Mexico, Brazil, Saudi Arabia, Nigeria. I kind of feel that process is kind of it's anywhere international. But
it's more endemic in, I would say, emerging markets, for sure. Yeah, I mean,
yes.
and a lot of these emerging markets happen to have a lot of resource to develop. So yeah, I mean, that's something we can help as well, right? We like to focus in Asia, but we also have partners in Africa, South America as well, so that we can bring them.
Well, you've been over there 16 years. You're probably pretty well connected. Are you
Yeah,
enjoying it over there?
yeah, it's good. It's good. Look, I mean, Singapore. I don't know if you've ever been here, but it's a nice place to raise a family. It's a extremely safe place. It used to be much more interesting when you could travel, but I've been here since March of 2020, so it's starting to get
Okay.
a bit of island fever in terms of not traveling. So almost a year of due to COVID. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a great place. I love it here. The market's here, and again, it's still a pretty exciting place to be in the end.
Well, brother, man, is there anything I'm not bringing up that you want to bring up? Because I think we're kind of coming close to time. Or is there anything I'm not bringing up that you'd like to kind of just ping or plug real quick?
No ping, no plug. It's just fun to catch up with you, and I mean, we can have another call. I'm happy to talk about experience on the internet.
Honestly, I would love to have another like not so formal call, just where you just kind of shoot the shit about kind of your experiences, about kind of doing work over there, and kind of dealing with your stories in India, stories with government. But anyway, but before we get to that, everyone, first off, Jasper, thank you so much for deciding to take this at bright and early for you at 6 a.m. Everyone, and just so everyone knows that this is again Jasper Camacho, the man director at Marius International. You can find him on LinkedIn. And Jasper, what's your email, real quick?
So it's Jasper JASPER Camacho at Marius MARIUS INTL.com. .com.
'Cause, 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 Okay, and well, obviously we're gonna link you to this and all that stuff when we're done. If anyone has any questions or just wants to reach out, say tag up with a fellow American fellow Aggie wherever he's at, and to kind of talk to him about recompleting some wells, because I guarantee you there's a huge group of population here in the States that would be curious to hop on that. So,
Sure.
man, I appreciate it. It's good catching up with you. We got to get a picture after this on your two brothers. And next time you
Sounds
get to
great.
San Antonio to see Oma, let me know. I'd love to
Yeah,
see y'all.
indeed, indeed, indeed. It's been a pleasure, JP.
All right, amigo. I'll talk to you soon. And
Take care.
don't hang up when we get off the call. We got to get a picture. All right.
Okay, okay.
All right, buddy. I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for joining us, everyone. This is Jasper Camacho with Marius International, and just reach out to him when you can. All right. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon.